We're gonna get started working on some three-dimensional hip strength. So if you could set your reformer to universal settings, half spring, platform over the spring, foot bar down, that would be excellent. If you have wrist stuff going on, or typically are uncomfortable having, your wrists totally in 90 degrees, you could put the foot bar up one notch and then hold on to the foot bar instead of having your hands on the platform. Okay, so we're gonna start. There's hardly any spring tension on here, so be careful when you get on, but just push the carriage out enough that you get your knees underneath your hips, neutral through the spine, should feel very light. Round your back up towards the ceiling and let the carriage come in some. Your feet don't have to be against the shoulder rest. It's light enough, it doesn't matter. It's just comfort and leg length. And then lengthen back out to one long line. And then again, round your back, scoop through the lower spine, let the knees come under you, and then lengthen back out to one long line to neutral. And one more time around the lower back up towards the ceiling, pull the carriage in, and then lengthen back out to one long line. Once you're here in this one long line, you're gonna stay, keeping the back of the legs working just enough to keep the knees underneath the hips. And then you're just gonna start pawing one hand up off of the reformer. As you do this a couple times, if it feels too easy, bring your legs closer together. Obviously not feet against the shoulder rest once your legs come closer together. So then setting the hand down in the same handprint instead of letting your hands get closer and closer together. And you can lift one hand and reach it forward. Once you've got that happening, make sure you're still in the center and just lower and lift your arm. If you wanted to add a small weight to your hand, you could, 2-3 pounds, something like that. But we're gonna add to this, build on this. So if it feels manageable now, we'll keep going, don't worry. And then hold the arm up, stay there, let the arm go out to the side towards the hips, just 4 times, keeping your body from shifting off center, keep the carriage still, reach overhead and back to the hip and overhead. Last one. And then bringing your hand back down in the same handprint, not in the center. Reach the other arm forward, try not to tip to the side or lean, lower and lift the arm in front of you. Keep the carriage still. Trying to hold the carriage the whole time, just gentle connection at the back of the pelvis. Hold the arm up, hand goes towards the hips, and then back overhead. 4, 3, 2, and last one. And bring your hand back down. Round your back, pull the knees underneath you, stretch your spine open. The carriage might come in all the way or it might come in halfway, whatever feels good to you. And then lengthen back out until the knees are underneath the hips. Reach one leg out behind you. Feel neutral. Lower your leg towards the side of the carriage and then lift it up and back behind you. So to the side and then up and back and to the side, up and back, trying to keep the carriage off the stopper and knee directly under the hip. Yeah, exactly. So down and then straight back behind the sit bone and down and straight back behind the sit bone. Then stay with your leg in the air. Then you're gonna go across the midline towards the other shoulder rest, then up and over the rainbow to the other side. So you're going from one side of the shoulder rest to the other side of the shoulder rest. It crosses the body more. Feel more the midline of the hips. Keep your hips in the center. Up and over, up and over. Keep your head in line with the rest of your body. And last one. And then bring that leg down, round your back, pull the knees in, pull the carriage under you a little bit, and then return back out to one long line. Reach your leg out behind you, go way down to the side of the carriage and press back up behind your sit bone. As you go down to the side, trying to stay centered, you'll feel more weight go into one hand. Even though that's happening, you're trying to make everything as stable as possible. to the side, and back, and to the side, up and back. And one more time. Then the leg is going to go across the midline towards the other shoulder rest, up and over the rainbow to the other shoulder rest. So from one side to the other, more or less pelvis staying level. Keep pushing evenly through both arms. So you're trying not to wag the tail side to side too much. Up and over, up and over. Try to cross over the midline. And 3, 2, and last one. And bring the knee back in, round your back, scoop, sit back towards your heels for 2 seconds. And then last thing here, you probably can guess what's coming next, where we combine the upper and the lower body together. Of course, you could just do the upper body again, or you could just do the lower body. So reach one arm and the opposite leg out. And then the arm is going to go down as the leg goes to the side of the reformer, and then you press up and back. If your hands are sliding, feel free to add sticky mat underneath your hands. Yeah, so keep your legs straight. And 2 more, down and up and back, down, and then hold. The leg goes across the midline as the arm comes towards the hip. So it's like the hand and the foot are coming towards each other and then away from each other. Towards each other and away from each other. Or however you can coordinate that. And keeping the carriage as still as possible is part of the work here. 2 more. And across. And last one. And setting that down. Other arm and leg reaches forward. Leg reaches back. Go towards the floor. Back behind you. Standing hip is working to hold the carriage still. Down and up. Down and up. Good. Down and up. Nice, Melanie. And then hold, and your arm's going to come towards your hip as your leg comes up and over the midline. So hand and foot come towards each other, and then over the rainbow, away, and towards and away, and towards and away. 4, 3, 2, and last one. And bring your arm and legs back in. And then you're going to come off of here. You're going to kneel. Make sure your foot bar is all the way down on the carriage. It's very light. Bring your hands forward, about halfway on the carriage. Neutral. Start to curl the pelvis under and let that curl of the pelvis start to press you forward, opening through your hips. Then lengthen the spine into extension, then round the belly back up to pull yourself back. Should feel like lots of abdominals. If you just hinge at the hip and go to a plank, it won't feel like much abdominals. Well, it's not nothing, but won't feel like a lot. Yeah, so round the pelvis to articulate into extension, open your heart, look forward, and then head to tail, scoop the abs to come back. And use the hips to press forward, open through the spine, lift. Obviously, you don't have to go into extension, it's up to you. As you start to come back, instead of just lifting your butt, lift your abs instead. So don't lift your butt to come back, lift your abs, lift your abs, lift your abs. Yeah, and it should feel like something's working here. And one more time, sending it forward, opening up, not collapsing, lifting into extension, and scooping the abs, rounding and coming back. Good. From here, turn sideways. So one leg is on the platform and one hand is on the platform, and one hand and knee is on the carriage. And just press the carriage out, open through your inner thighs, and then round your back and scoop and come back in. You can play around with your legs being more turned out as you press out or more parallel. Changes the stretch, rounding up and in. So lengthen the spine to push out and round your back to come in. And again, lengthen the spine to press out and round to come in. One last time. Press out, stay out there, do a little extra pulse into your range, and then scoop and pull everything back in. Good. Then come off the carriage side first. And then we're gonna sit on the carriage facing the side. The headrest can be down. We've done this before. Of course, you could lay all the way down. You're gonna hold the strap in the top hand. It's only a half spring, so you decide if this is too light for you. Feet, you just have to kind of hold them up, push down through your arm. And if you decide that's way too light, feel free to add more. So pressing your arm down. Lift your waist so you're not sinking into the carriage or the shoulder rest. You're lifted, so it's just as much work on the bottom arm as it is on the top. Pressing down and lifting up. If you want it to be a tiny bit heavier, fold the strap in half and it'll take you into a bigger range. Or add your quarter spring. Extend the top leg out long. Hold that top leg up and lower it slightly as the hand comes towards it. Lift it as the arm comes up. Lower a little, and it might be 2 inches you're moving. And push the floor away the whole time. Little lower, little lift, and lower a little, lift a little. Try not to be kind of what I would call pitched over this shoulder. So your elbow should be under your shoulder. So you've got that kind of stability coming from the bottom arm. Yeah, and then hold your arm down by your side, flex your foot, circle your leg. 4, 5, and 6, reverse 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Hold the leg there. Take your arm and leg forward, or just the arm, and press back towards your hip. Arm and leg go forward and back and forward and back. Here's where it starts to get a little heavier. 3 more. And last one. And then come all the way back in. You can either lay down or stay on your side like you are. Put the strap on your top foot. Hold on to the shoulder rest. And just 6 times alternating between bend and stretch and straight forward and back. And bending in, press out and forward, back. We've got 4 more. 4, press. Nice. Make it smooth. Last 2. And last 1. And then bend your leg in, take the strap off, come up to kneeling carefully, mindfully, get up to your kneeling position. And start with a little bit of external rotation. So just rotating through the back of the arm a couple times. As we do this, when we're adding this draw a sword motion, that same external rotation is happening. It's just going to happen higher. So go into your drawing a sword so that external rotation happens up closer to shoulder height. Pressing. If you want to add a little bit of challenge, you could either use a ball for your three-dimensional hip connection that we're working on today. You could add a ball or a block between your inner thighs. If you're kneeling and you're in a really wide position, this makes you more stable. So don't surprise yourself when you put something between your inner thighs and it's harder to balance. Make sure you're in control. Yeah, nice. Ball, block, whatever you can find. And jam it up as high as you can so that you feel more connection up into the groin. And it should feel like it goes all the way back towards the back of the glutes, the deep stuff. So it kind of lifts the gluteal fold a little bit just by adducting and connecting into something. Yeah, nice. One more time. And then we can keep the block turned to face the side, sit towards your heels. You can start by just doing plow here, sitting on your heels. If you feel totally in control and that you're not going to tip over, you can come up onto your knees, pulling yourself up to vertical. I realize that because I have you holding something, you're in a narrow stance. So just be more mindful even than normal. So pulling up on the front of the pelvis, pressing back, turn the palm to face in or forward. And then start to take it out into a loop or like a teardrop shape, a little oval, out, away from you and around. Out, away from you, pulling up through the front of the pelvis. Good. Don't focus on going so far behind yourself. Focus on opening across the front of the collarbone and the shoulder. Reverse the circle you're making. Trying to press from strength versus kind of swing from momentum. Nice. Keep pulling up on the front of the pelvis. That'll lengthen the hip flexors. You're trying to be less kind of flexed at the front of the hip, pulling up as much as you can towards vertical. Last two. And last one. Press your arm back there behind you, wherever you can reach to, and then bend and straighten the elbow from your tricep so the upper arm stays where it is, and then you're kind of like digging back with the arm and press back through the hand. 3, 2, and last one, and then return. Good. You can set that strap down, take the block away, put it someplace you'll be able to get it, and walk around to the other side. Come to kneeling on the carriage. Hands on the platform first and knee on the platform, and then press your legs apart. Round your back up towards the ceiling to scoop and come back in. Lengthen through the spine, press out, and round and scoop and come back in. Three more. You can play around with the legs being more turned out. Changes the stretch or more turned in. And the last one, you're going to press out and do a little extra pulse into your full range. And then come all the way back in. And then carefully climb off the carriage first. And then you can sit on the carriage. Take the top strap and put it in your top hand. Press your elbow down underneath your shoulder into the headrest, and then see if this resistance works. If you changed it on the other side, you know you'll change it on this side, of course. And lift up and press towards your hips and lift up. And then add the top leg extending when you're ready. So the leg can just hold for the first few. And then as the arm goes up, the leg goes up a little. As the arm goes down, the leg goes down a little. Little lift and lower. Not a lot of room to move here, so it doesn't have to be very big. Try to keep tension in the rope. Two more. And then we're gonna press the arm down, hold the arm, flex your foot, and circle. And keep lifting the ribs away from the carriage, shoulder rests, so you're not sinking. And reverse, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Take the arm and leg forward, or just the arm, and press back. And arm and leg forward, and back. And forward, and back. Few more. Last 3, 2, and last 1. And then you can put your foot in that loop. You can lay all the way down or stay up, propped up. And 6 times alternating between bend and straighten, and forward or lift and lower. And bending in, deep crease in the front of the hip. Press all the way to straight each time. As your leg goes forward, try not to let your leg get lower. You're halfway there. Hopefully you're feeling some hip work here. And last 2. And last 1. And then bend your leg in. Take the strap in your hand. Carefully come up to kneeling facing the side. Grab your block if you used it on the other side, or your ball. And start with a little bit of external rotation. So just rotating the arm open, getting that connection happening through the back of the shoulder blade. So you're feeling the back of the shoulder blade connect, and that the press is coming from scapular stability and mobility. And then draw a sword. So that same rotation happens up closer to shoulder height. Try to control it on the return. And elbow presses long and come across. And elbow reaches wide. Think of the whole time you're trying to get really broad through the shoulders. 3 more. And last one here. And then coming back in, turn carefully to face towards the shoulder rests. And you can either sit down on the shoulder, on the heels, and just do plow motion, or you can stand up on the knees. As you're going through this, trying to feel how you can stay open across the collarbone. It should feel really different when you try to focus on the connection of the back of the shoulder versus on just like your hand going backwards behind you, because you don't get that. We don't want that like teeter-totter effect where the hand goes back, and because it's lifting, the shoulder's going down in the front. We want the shoulder open and the press to come from the back. Start to take it into those loops or circles, teardrop shapes, kind of ovals at the side, connecting to the back of the shoulder to move. And then reverse. Pressing through the back of the arm the whole time, back of the shoulders are level. Squeeze into the block or the ball. Last 2. And last 1, hold the arm back behind you and then bend and straighten. Doesn't have to be real far back, you decide. Bend and press. and 3, 2, last one. And then bringing the strap down, and you can take the block away. Sit down on the carriage facing the side. You can lift the platform up to take all the springs off. And then scooch to the edge and find this little push-pull with your legs where you have lots of room to move in both directions and your legs are wide. If you're on the shorter end of the spectrum and on a tall reformer, you might have to put something under your feet. So you're trying to push to one side and then do a big stretch, flex your foot, and then pull yourself to the other side, big stretch through the adductor. And do that a couple times, big stretch up and over. And big stretch opening through your adductors. Stretch up and over. And one more time, go towards the shoulder rest, side bend, then start to turn your body towards the shoulder rest, put your hand on the shoulder rest, rotate your leg and open your hip. And then sit back down and go the other way. One more time, go towards your leg, put your hand on the shoulder rest, rotate your butt comes off the carriage, then you sit back down and go the other way. Good. Okay, so then put your half spring back on there and come to standing facing the camera. If you need sticky things, add them. And stand on the platform first, then on the carriage, side splits. So it's very light. We usually do it double the resistance. So push out, feel the midline of the body pulling up and in to come back in, stretching open, and then connecting through the inner thighs to pull back in. Keep pulling up on the front of the pelvis. 2 more times, super gentle. Opening and pulling back in. And last one, open and pull all the way back in. Bend your knees into a squat position and pump the carriage leg out and in. Feels like you have to go a little bit more slow motion since it's lighter. Long through the spine. So we're gonna squat, meaning the torso is angled forward. You're gonna bring the carriage back in, stand back up, and now try to do the same thing, but in a plie where your torso stays vertical and you pump out and in. Still parallel with your legs. Yeah. And then press the carriage leg out, side bend towards it, holding the carriage where it is, and then come back in. And push up and over, side bend, and in, and twice more, side bend, and come back in, last one. Straighten the leg on the carriage, side bend, and come all the way back in. Stand on the platform, turn towards the foot bar direction. So it's still very light, keep that in mind. The leg that was on the platform before is still going to be on the platform. You're going to put your other toes, the one that were on the carriage is still on the carriage, against the edge of the carriage. Come down into a squat and then pumping the carriage out. My socks are sliding here. If you need to take your socks off to be able to do this safely, feel free, or the sticky ones. Push, pull. So more of the work is in the front leg because the back leg is pretty light. Push, pull, push, pull. Four, 3, 2, and last one, and come all the way back in, step onto the platform, and let's do the whole thing on the second side. So come to your feet in line with each other, and adductors pressing you out, big stretch through the inner thigh, and pull yourself back in. Keeping your torso between both legs, lifting through the spine, trying to not just sink into your flexibility, but lift up and out of it. One more time. And come back in. You're gonna squat down and pump the carriage leg out and in. Push, pull, push, pull. The platform leg isn't moving. Your torso's not moving side to side. And then come back in, stand all the way up. Now plie, keeping your torso vertical. Push the leg out and in from there. A couple times. Push, pull, push, pull. Vertical torso. And then the last four, we're going to add that side bend. So push the carriage leg out, hold it as you side bend towards the leg, and then you come back in by bending the knee. Push out, side bend towards the leg, come back in. And two more. And last one. Big stretch over and come back in, stand on the platform, adjust as necessary, but the carriage leg is still going to be the carriage leg. So reach that carriage foot back and hook your toes on the edge of the carriage, and then bending both knees, then push the back leg out towards straight, long line through the spine, push, pull. Nice. Good. That's it, nice. And see if you can get a little lower for the last four. 3, 2, and last one. And then come all the way back in. Turn to one of the sides and step off the back of the reformer. And we're gonna do that little sitting stretch again with no springs on. So you're probably gonna be facing away from me just because it wasn't symmetrical. Put yourself in the middle of the rails, find that push-pull through the legs, and then add a big side bend. You can flex your foot and side to side a couple times. Big stretch to the side and up and over. And then we'll add that special one. So you go up and over towards the shoulder rest, rotate towards the shoulder rest, put your hand that's closer to the shoulder rest on it, rotate your hip open, put your butt back down, and come up and over to the other side. And again, stretch open and up and over to the other side. Good. And then you can bring the carriage back in, and let's put 2 red springs on. And locate your straps, and you're gonna lay on your back with your feet in the straps. Headrest can be any way that works for you. And lift your feet up into the loops. Press your legs out on the diagonal. Let's stay rotated, turned out. So start with bend and stretch and turn out. Make sure you're in the middle of the carriage. Bending in, deep creases in the front of the hips. Press out and try to move through the feet. Move through the ankles. In and pressing out. And kind of keeping it moving, squeezing the heels together. Deep flexion in the front of the hip. If you would like to add to that, add your beat, open, close, bend in, press out, open, close. squeeze, bend in, press out, squeeze the inner thighs together. Emphasize the clap of the inner thighs in towards each other right before your heels would bang. And then rotate the legs to parallel and do the same thing. Bend in, press out, open, close. Bend in, press out, open, close. And two more. Last one. Flex your feet, internally rotate so your knees and your toes are pointed towards each other. Bend your knees in towards tabletop, then let your legs turn out and press back out. So internally rotate to bend in, external rotation to press out. Internally rotate to come in, external to press out. It's okay if your feet don't touch each other and the toes might touch, then the heels, or they might not. It should feel really smooth. You're kind of sneaking the knees underneath that rope. If you've got the coordination to reverse it, go for it. Otherwise, just keep going the way you are. The movement's coming from the hip joints, not from the knees. Hip joints are changing to move into internal and external rotation. Nice. So whatever you could make of that. Last one. Then keep internally rotated, flex your feet and lift the legs up towards the ceiling and then push the legs back down. It's kind of a weird outer hip stretch, outer thigh stretch feeling. Do two more like that. Lifting the legs up until you feel something along the outside of the legs. And lifting up and press back down. Good, rotate your legs turned out again, go into your stag. So like a check mark, one leg goes out to the side, the other heel comes in towards the sit bone or Peter Pan. Your body stays in the center. Both heels come and touch again in the middle, open and press closed. This is a nice active lengthening through the midline of the leg, as well as a lot of rotators outside of the hips working the whole time to keep the turnout. Press and two more. Finish up even, reach back, put the headrest down. If it's up and we'll go into your short spine. So you're rotated, turned out. I'll go through the prep first. If you do the full, then go for it. Rotate to parallel, hinge at your hips, lift your legs up towards the ceiling, stay there and breathe. Rotate the legs turned out, bend the knees, pulling the heels towards the tail, and then press out. Or you can go into your full, rotate to parallel, hinge at the hips, start to peel up sooner than you think. Rotate, turned out, pull the heels towards the tail. And roll down along the center of your spine. When you can't go any further, connect the back of the legs and then push out. Reaching up into the sky as you roll up. Carriage comes all the way into the stopper. If you're really tall and these settings aren't working for you, so you can't get the carriage all the way in, feel free to adjust your footwork settings. Rolling up, pulling the heels towards the tail and rolling back down. One last time. Hinge at the hips, roll up. Pull the heels towards the tail, roll away from the heels, and bring the carriage all the way back in. Rotate your legs turned in again. Bring your legs up towards the ceiling as much as it's comfortable, like you have hamstring length and can keep your knees straight. And do a few circles there. Obviously, this isn't a position of the legs I want you to walk down the street in, but we want to be strong and mobile on all sides of the hips And so kind of working in these different positions helps us to strengthen and mobilize all the different tissues three-dimensionally around the hip. Reverse your direction. Maybe it's like a beach ball size circle, kind of quick, kind of push evenly through both legs. And last one. And then you can bend your legs in, take your feet out of the straps, take the straps in one hand, roll to your side to come up off of the carriage. And we'll switch to the half spring again. If you know you have a little trouble with inner thigh strength, then you could do the quarter instead. We're gonna put the straps on the hooks or on the floor so they're out of the way. And then the platform is gonna come over the rails between the headrest and the pulleys. And you can step up on the rail first and then onto the platform. And then the other foot is gonna go onto the carriage next to the shoulder rest. So here we are. Bend your platform leg and then bend the carriage leg to pull it in. If you're running out of room, put the headrest up. Just don't smack it into your ankle. Pull in and return. Pull in and return. So you're trying to bend the carriage leg to pull it in. I'm using a quarter spring today and that feels challenging to me. So the half spring is too heavy, just change it. Bend it to pull it, straighten it to reach it. Bend it to pull it, straighten it to reach. 3, 2, and 1. And then keep the carriage still for a second. You're gonna reach your arms out to the side, bend one knee like you're trying to touch the opposite foot, come back up and lunge. So you should feel some opening through the side of the hip as you do this. Allow your inner thighs to move. It doesn't have to be the biggest stretch you've ever felt in your whole life. You still are standing on a moving surface, so be mindful of that. And over, and one more time, and come back up. Be careful as you stand onto the platform. And from here, it depends on how far you are away. Like I'm feeling like this is too far for me to reach. So if you need to move your platform in a little bit, you can. This isn't gonna be a big range of motion, but whichever leg was on the carriage before, that leg is gonna reach onto the carriage now. Bend your back leg and try to pull the carriage in, and it should feel like your back hip has to work. If you're against the shoulder rest like I am, it's harder to move. So if you want to put your foot more near the headrest, you have a little bit more range of motion. It's not very big. We're building on something that's coming down the road. So just pulling in an inch, reaching forward. Most of the work is in that standing leg. Pull, reach, pull, reach. Yeah. Keep your weight back over the back leg. Don't let the whole body go forward and crash. Back over the back leg. It's more like chair work that you've done before. If you're having trouble balancing, then you need to grab something like a wall. Last one. And then stepping onto the platform and adjust the sticky pads however you need, or your body, so you can turn to face the second side. So bend the platform leg, pull the carriage in, return. Pull and return. If it's too light, too easy, move the platform away from the carriage. It's too hard, move the platform towards the carriage. Inner thigh pulls and returns. Inner thigh pulls, return. And 4, 3, 2, last one. And then hold the carriage still. And bend one leg and reach towards the opposite foot. Lift up all the way to vertical, lunge across. It's okay if you don't literally touch your foot. Go to your ankle, go to your knee, go to your shin. Kind of shifting the pelvis. Should feel like you're opening up the outside of the hip and the inner thigh of the leg that's straightening. Good. And then come back up, step onto the platform, and whichever leg was on the carriage, put it on the headrest area, wherever you can reach. Find your balance, should feel quite light, and bend and straighten. Make sure your feet aren't right in front of each other. That would make it harder to balance. Super small movement. Yeah. Little pull, reach, pull, reach. Hips are level. All the work is in the standing hip. Try not to keep the knee the same shape, but literally bend it and straighten it more. Bend it more, straighten it more. Yeah. Good. Last one. And then step onto the platform, turn to one side to step off behind yourself. And you're gonna kneel on that platform. Your hands are gonna be against the shoulder rest, but flat. So make your hands blades so you can't totally relax against the shoulder rest. Curl the pelvis under and round, pull the knees, pull the carriage towards your knees, and then return. So it's mostly you moving through your lower back. Probably gonna want 1/2 or 3/4 springs. If you're on the quarter, it's probably gonna feel a little light. Round the pelvis under, open the front of the hip, lengthen back out. Do that twice more. Round and lengthen and round and lengthen. Bringing your hands down to the carriage, walking the hands further forward so they're not directly under the shoulders. Bend your elbows and point them back to pull the carriage back. You'll feel how as the elbows bend, your torso gets a little lower. It just hinges at the hip to accommodate the movement. So you're doing like a tricep pull, the elbows bend, you lower your torso a little. Bend your elbows more, straighten your elbows more. Many of you are just keeping your elbows the same shape. I want it to be more of a bend, more of a straightening. So it's like the beginning of a push-up. Bend your elbows, point them back. If I don't see your torso moving, then you're not bending your elbows, basically. So your torso would have to go lower. Yeah. Does that make sense? Like if you bend your elbows, your torso has to go lower or else you wouldn't be able to bend them very much. Yeah. Good. There's a plan on what we're kind of using this to build towards. Then I want your hands to stay in that same place. They could even move further forward, but you're going to keep your arms straight and you'll feel how it lifts you up into a little bit of extension. Walk your hands a little bit further forward if you can and try it again. So as your hands come underneath you with straight arms, let it lift you a little bit into extension. If you can start with your hands forward enough that you're in a lower position, your head is lower than your pelvis, that's great. And then your head comes above the pelvis. So you're moving in both directions. Lift, lengthen, lift, lengthen, lift. And 3, 2, and last one. Return the carriage to the stopper, come off to the side. You can put the platform away, out of your way. And let's come to one red spring. Bring the foot bar up and come onto the carriage. Once you're on the carriage, again, if you need the sticky pads, feel free to use them or take your socks off, don't slide. But you're gonna put one foot on the rail and then scooch over so your foot is against the shoulder rest on the same side. So you're in a very narrow position. Just push the carriage back from the back leg and feel how that's not very heavy. By all means, feel free to open the hip up, but feel free as we continue to build this to add more resistance. So then take your weight in your front leg, keeping your hands on the bar, barely any weight in the back knee, and then pumping the carriage out and in. As you feel comfortable, you can start to take a little bit more weight out of your hands, but keep your hands near the bar just for safety. Yeah, it shouldn't look like you kind of get pulled backwards as your legs straighten. You've got to hold your torso more still. Yes. 4, 3, 2, and 1. Bring the carriage in, set your knee back down, push both legs out towards straight. If you need to walk your hands down the rails, you can. Just be mindful. And come all the way back in and switch everything over to the other side. Narrow position, more balance work. Push out, open that back hip. Take a couple breaths. And then come back in. Take your weight, shift it forward into that front leg so you can lift the back knee nice and low. Try to be as low as possible. Yeah, get down there. Good, Robbie. Yeah, exactly. Trying to keep the hip from hiking up on that front leg, front side. Awesome, everyone. Push, pull. Good, Dana. Taking a little weight out of your hands. 4, 3, 2, and last one. Set your knee down, push back out again into a big stretch. You can dust your hands however you need to feel a big stretch. And bringing everything back in. We're gonna go into our up stretch. So if you could switch to 1.5 springs, that's a good starting point. And then we'll go from there. So come up into your elephant, round back, high half toe position, and just do a couple. It's not very heavy. Push out a little bit and pull back in. Push and pull. Of course, if you're either more petite or really long, you're welcome to switch to your footwork settings before you continue. If you're kind of average, this will work, these universal settings. Melanie, see if you can round your back and keep your back round the whole time. So as you press out, you're not kind of flattening out. Yeah, so we did something very similar to this kneeling at the very beginning. So same idea, you're gonna start to push out from the back of the legs, then the pelvis is gonna descend forward. You lengthen to one long line. And then instead of finishing the exercise, I want you to roll from head to tail to come back up and in, which is exactly what we did kneeling. Obviously different when you add the lever length of the legs. Push out, the pelvis lengthens, you lift your head, and then the head initiates the rounding back in. Good, one more time, I'm watching here, pressing out. Tail to head, head to tail to come back in. So look towards your belly button. Yeah, good. So then we just add a little bit of a press out and into this. So keep that. Start to push out through the back of the legs, descend through the pelvis, lengthen from tail to head to your plank. Bring the whole shape forward. When you can't go any further, nod your chin and round to come back in. And push out through the back of the legs, just send the pelvis, articulate tail, the head to your long line. Come forward, nod the chin, roll yourself back in. And again, push out tail, the head, and lengthen to your plank, bring it forward. Don't sink in the pelvis, head to tail. Don't push the carriage back out as you come from head to tail. It stays over the foot bar. One more time. Press out. Melanie, put your feet in the high half toe position against the shoulder rest. I think you won't have a good start. Yeah, try that. do one more. Get back into your round back elephant position, everybody. Round your back with your heels lifted against the shoulder rest still. I think your Melanie, your springs are either too light or you're set too far away from the stopper. Yeah. If on this exercise it feels too hard to push out, it's because you're not connecting your glutes 9 times out of 10. Okay, one last time. So you've got to be able to hold the carriage in this round back position against the stopper. And we'll do one more together. Press out from tail to head to one long line. Bring that whole plank forward. Then head to tail. The carriage doesn't move out. It's moving in, it's moving in, it's moving in. And you're scooping the belly up. Good. And then we'll set the knees down and you're all done. Good job. Yay. Thank you guys for coming.